Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult video 152, The Beast of Gevaudan, a sort of a spooky story from the mid-1700s in France. If you ever get a chance, watch the movie Brotherhood of the Wolf. You should watch the English version. It's actually very good. It's better with the English dub than in French with English subtitles. Now, disclaimer, there's some nudity in the movie and blood and violence and stuff like that. So some of you are a little bit too young for that stuff. You know, who really cares? But Tipper Gore cares. But The Beast of Gevaudan in literature, as far as the more academic side, we're not talking Hollywood now, is actually still quite a spooky story. And a lot of the explanations people throughout time have put forward for the phenomenon don't make sense. Now, long story short, in the 1760s, in early Enlightenment France, you got a rash of wolf attacks on numerous civilians at the time. A large number of people over the course of 3 years were killed and maimed, supposedly by one abnormally large wolf. According to the authorities at the time, that's what they suspected was happening, or perhaps a pack of wolves, or a rabid animal, a feral dog, or something like that. None of these make any sense. Wolf packs do not typically attack people, certainly not for that period of time. We do have some semi-modern literature to suggest sporadically that could happen. It's possible that a wolf pack technically got too used to being around these towns, sort of took up residence, scavenged, got a little too friendly with humans, and then some of the older members that no longer could hunt other more able prey just decided to start dragging off humans, essentially. But that doesn't appear to be reflected. If we look at tales of wolf attacks where a population of wolves has become a little too chummy with humans, the little kids were mushrooming and they threw the steak to the wolves, and how majestic and just wonderful. There are several modern counterparts from Russian literature from the 50s and 60s especially, as well as literature from Canada, I believe, that suggests that this can happen, but typically how this happens is it just doesn't fit in with the Beast of Gevaudan sort of situation. In those situations, generally very small children are the only ones being dragged off. The Beast of Gevaudan also dragged off adult males and attacked people in broad daylight. Even the first attack, I believe, was a woman who was minding her cattle, and the cattle ended up driving off whatever this particular animal in that case was. The description given in all of the accounts doesn't fit a wolf. In my opinion, it fits a hyena. What I think happened, here's my hypothesis. Around that time, French aristocrats, traveling maybe, or sending people to travel to these colonial regions they were beginning to inhabit, met all sorts of animals that they had only seen in books. And they assumed that they were otherworldly and very cool and fun to hang out with. It would be something to show all the ladies at the court, essentially. Hey, get into my pants. Look what I just got from the African colonies here. It's called a hyena. Isn't it cool? It poops white poop. Because it eats bones. Isn't that morbid? Haha, I'm a libertine. Something like that. Some aristocrat, I think, thought it was a good idea to bring back a hyena or a couple hyenas or maybe like a lion cub from Africa. And in the former case, they said, well, this animal's more aggressive than I thought. I think I'll just leave it outside the gate and it'll go in the woods. It'll die because this isn't Africa. We have cold winters. It'll die. And then it didn't die for some years to come and began killing people because all of the normal prey species were absent. It was not able to adapt readily, and what I think happened is it was probably scavenging trash on the fringes of one or more of these towns, got too familiar with humans being around, said, these are slow animals. They don't even notice I'm here. I'll start eating them. It just makes sense. And that's an entirely plausible theory. They did have contact with these regions in which they would have been encountering hyenas, lions, and things of that nature. And through other colonial endeavors, they could have acquired a tiger or anything like that, or an Alaskan brown bear. Thankfully, there appear to have been no mass attacks by such animals. The other possibility is sort of the gators in the sewer explanation, which is essentially somebody brought back a lion cub, something comparable to that. And then they realize that they get a lot bigger than little, fuzzy, wuzzy, roly-poly little lion cub. They said, uh-oh, it bit my wife yesterday. I got to do something about it because otherwise I can't get this orgy on tonight. She's going to be mad at me. I think I'll just leave it outside the gates. Or, another possibility, some of these aristocrats were essentially chickens that didn't want to go to a foreign land to go hunting because, oh, I might get mauled or something. I'll just have them bring back a couple interesting animals, and I'll let them free on the grounds, and I'll hunt them here with all my manservants and maidservants. Stand over there, woman. You're the bait. When it comes, I'll blow its head off. And then realized too late that a juvenile lion can leap great distances, that hyenas are capable of jumping and climbing over obstacles, and it escaped. Now, who's going to tell the authorities, oh yeah, I brought back this animal from the colony, only it escaped and it's now in the woods. Sorry about that. Because then under their laws of the time, they're going to be the ones expending the money to hire people to kill it. If it kills anyone, it's not going to be the crown shelling out. The crown paid several individuals for fending off creatures throughout time when there were attacks by some vicious wolf or something like that. No, then the noble would have to shell out. Well, that wouldn't be good because they're already having problems with that king dude over there. They didn't want to have the whole crown come crashing down on their heads, so they just didn't say anything. Oh, nobody. The only people that know that I've got this animal are like my servants. They're not going to say anything. They just live here at my chateau. And they don't even really mix with the general population. You shut up or I fire you. Or you shut up or I sell you into slavery or something like that. I'll send you to Africa. I'll give you over to the military. I'll dispose of you in my employ and I'll give you over to the crown for indentured servitude or something like that. And so what I think is the most likely explanation is that the eventual animal that they killed that ended the attacks, that they describe as being disfigured, the way they describe it sounds a lot like a hyena. They're describing it as a wolf, but they're saying, yeah, but it has like a stripe down its back and it's kind of hunched over, shorter snout, weird little tail. It sounds like a hyena, honestly, or possibly a juvenile lion. It doesn't sound like a wolf in any way, shape, or form. It also doesn't sound particularly like a wolf-dog hybrid. Now that's the other possibility. A very large dog, maybe a mastiff, breeding with a wolf, gives rise to an offspring that is marginally dog-like enough to live among humans to some extent without being too noticed until it's very large. Runs out of stuff to scavenge, picks off some chickens here and there, and people get worried a bit and then starts attacking humans that it's used to, that it knows is generally non-aggressive towards it, so it doesn't fear them. This wouldn't, though, explain why after being hunted for several years it continued in that endeavor. It wouldn't really explain it. Unless it was messed up and sick, in which case you would expect people would have noted that. Nobody noted that this animal or these animals were emaciated or acting crazy, like rabid. Rabies certainly wouldn't fit. You wouldn't get attacks for that long a period of time. You would need numerous animals. They would have to more or less explicitly be targeting humans. That's not what happens during a rabies outbreak. The animal, going mad, will attack people more or less at random in whatever order it encounters them. It's hungry. It's also got the tendency to bite on any object that comes near it that moves, or inanimate objects in many cases when it's in the rage period of rabies, for a few days, and then it succumbs. It's no longer able to attack anybody because it's having seizures and falls into a coma and dies. So rabies definitely doesn't fit. Wolf definitely doesn't fit. Wolf-dog hybrid fits a little bit, but I think the best explanation of this interesting cryptozoological phenomenon is probably an exotic animal imported from one of the French colonies that people had difficulty describing because they had never seen such an animal. They had never really quantified it to academic standards. And so if they see a hyena, they think, oh, it's a deformed wolf. If they see a lion, maybe their first inclination is it's a strange, deformed canid of some sort that's been like transmogrified by witchcraft. And that's really how they saw the world. So it is occult in the sense that it's occult and paranormal, in the sense that this animal has not been fully described. We don't know exactly what it is, but those would be in my opinion, the best fitting hypotheses. lion or hyena, to a lesser extent, a wolf-dog hybrid that simply had no significant fear of humans, was sort of kind of raised on the outskirts of urbanization and was scavenging among humans for some time before it began to act up. Perhaps maybe there was a chicken farm there and it was sustaining itself by picking off some chickens, and then the chicken farm goes away, and then it doesn't know where it's going to get food, so it just starts attacking humans. That wouldn't be easily explained by the first attack, though. The very first attack was of a young girl minding her cattle, and the cattle drove this animal off, and she describes it as thus: striped down its back, wolf but larger, kind of crazy looking, with a short snout. It sounds more like a hyena. It doesn't even really sound like a lion. It wouldn't explain why the lion would be driven off by the cattle so easily. It attacks, it gets driven back, attacks again, then wanders off. It also wouldn't explain why then there's a lapse between that attack and the next. It sounds more like the behavior of a hyena that's sort of testing its limits, sort of testing its surroundings to see, what am I actually able to eat here? Because I'm not used to any of these other things. It could have been acquired as a cub and have no real instinct of how to hunt beyond its most central level, and be operating based on cause and effect. And of course, once it realized humans went down fairly easily, it had no reason to hunt anything other than humans. That would explain as well the ability to go fairly decent periods between attacks. Predatory instances, that is, consuming food, would fit with a hyena too. I think that general period of time between attacks wouldn't really be so indicative of a lion. You would expect maybe fewer attacks, actually, with one of those. And you wouldn't expect it to occasionally partially consume something and then wander off. A lion would easily consume a whole human being in a short period of time. Some of these people had their guts torn out, otherwise had not apparently been fed upon. That would indicate something that was not monstrously large, that had to consume the whole human and then wander off. They did kill a bunch of wolves, but the attacks continued. If it were rabies related and it had found a temporary reservoir in wolves, you would have expected that they would have eliminated it on the first couple of hunts. They killed so many animals. It would have thinned the population out. The epidemic would have died out fairly quickly. It wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. That's about all. Peace out.